And I think that's Paul's approach. I think he wants to get the whole picture. Training actually was great. I really liked Paul's approach again, and also can communicate it in a very easy way to understand. And it's interesting, I didn't realize that you think Paul works out quickly what sort of personality type you are too.
2 times not successful over 160 kilometers. Most people would just walk away and say, not for me.
I've been back and forth about this question because it is a big thing in ultras. They talk about this why, and
It's good morning from my end, but good afternoon to you, Paul, and to you, Naomi. I hope you're both well. Naomi, first of all, I want to say a huge congratulations. I heard about the 160 kilometers that you've just accomplished. So I am desperate to ask you some questions, Paul, yourself as well. Naomi, how did coaching with Paul, like the preparation and performance for training before and during race day, how did that all go for you?
so it was a little bit serendipitous that I ended up with Paul, but in fact, it worked out absolutely brilliantly. So a friend of mine connected me with Paul because I was looking for a coach, and Jenny McMillan. So the 6 months preparation was really, I felt Paul had a plan from the moment I connected our first meeting. So that gave me the very initial sense of, okay, here's someone, they know what they're doing. And that kind of gives you a sense of peace and calm in a way, because I knew that I needed help to get this done. I really liked Paul's demeanour. It was very much about the human experience and listening, but not sort of creating a sense of doubt in my mind that I could do it either. I felt Paul had a very clear idea about how to get me from where I was to where I needed to be, but I never felt like I was not good enough to do it either. I also trusted that he'd probably tell me if it was just crazy, like what? Sorry, so that's a bit rambly, but I suppose it's just Paul exudes a very quiet confidence, but also quite methodical. He was from the get-go, it was very much about, okay, we'll be meeting this many times. These are the topics we're covering. And it was very holistic. So it wasn't just about pace or sort of sets, what you need to do when you're running. It was very much about the whole picture, head, heart, body, everything.
Sounds like it had some really good structure there for you to follow through, and absolutely brilliant. I can't even comprehend what the training's been like into the run up to this. Paul, just following on the back of that question from Naomi, what were your key priorities when working with Naomi on this journey that she was going on?
The first thing I always do with most athletes is really understand what they're trying to achieve and what does success look like to them, because it's very different to most athletes. They come from a different place and they're going to a different place. So me understanding what she really wanted out of the experience in this race was important to me, because that really drives how I'd structure her program and how I work with her, how I respond to any of her questions, is really around achieving her goal. The second thing I did, and I think, Naomi, you'll remember, one of the early sessions we did was what I call a values session. All right? I asked her to describe her perfect day in her life. What does it look like? And then based off that, we go through what we call a values elicitation, where she picks like her 5 highest values, and then we discuss those. And that's not just about setting her mind right as to how to prioritize. It actually gives me the insights to actually how to structure our interactions and her training. When things gets difficult, I know what she's looking for and I know how to respond. Some I need to drive them, saying, you've got to do these sessions. These are the important sessions. You have to turn up. With Naomi, it was more a case of understanding the barriers that may be getting in the way of training, and then working with her as to how we actually get around those. So it was a softer approach. And I think it might be totally different. But they need the accountability. Naomi didn't need accountability. She needed guidance. And that's how we structured the training from there. So really understanding what was required. And in terms of process, in terms of the actual training she needed, I quickly found out with the goal she had in mind, the physical was not the challenge. The physical, she had the base. We just had to work through structure to get there. Where she really needed the work was mindset and belief, mindset, knowing that she's going to go through a lot of struggles. A few struggles in the training, but definitely struggles in race day. She needs to be absolutely prepared for those. So we spend a fair bit of time discussing those aspects of the race, and not just. It's not just a physical thing. Oh, when you go to physical ultra, it's not physical. It's not the primary. It's
no.
they say it's 80% mental, and it is.
Absolutely.
And that's we really do work hard on that.
And I think you definitely, when you're talking about mindset, you're definitely the person for that because of what your history is and what you know. I definitely think you're able to help with that 100%. And Naomi, just going back to you, you've approached Paul, you've got this training. So can you give us a little insight to prior? You've had a few before, haven't you, that you've attempted? So how did the coaching refine that? Was there anything that you learnt from this? What were the changes?
So I've been thinking about that, and when you have a big goal and it doesn't work out, and it's frustrating. But that's partly the reason why I wanted to get some guidance so that I could get it done. Certainly on reflection, having 2 attempts, and there are 2 different reasons, but some overlapping reasons for not succeeding. And I'm actually kind of weirdly glad I had them now, because when Paul was talking to me about things, I could actually go, now, I get it why hydration is important.
Yeah.
I get why core temperature regulation is important. I get why fueling is important, and knowing that what my fueling needs were. I get why the strategic use of caffeine is important. So suddenly those experiences that I had, if I had gone through this process with Paul project, it might have ended up being another instance of luck getting it done. But it was really because I had that experience and Paul was sort of taking me through, I could actually go, I understand what you're saying. Or if I didn't, I could reach out to him and say, Paul, could you just go through the salt water, like the salt, and you were shifting again. I just didn't quite get it. So again, very open to ensuring that you really did understand, but he has a very good way of individualizing his teaching. And what do you say, Paul, you are? You're more of you give that. It's you're definitely a coach, but you're also like
mentor.
a mentor.
Much a mentor. Yeah.
So it's like you've got someone that has, as Paul said, you've got experiences in your life, and somehow he manages to tease out what you've got, because he did say to me, well, what happened in those instances?
Yeah.
What did you do? What didn't you do? Why do you think it didn't work?
Yeah.
And then I think what he does is takes from that and then works out what it is you need to know, and also can communicate it in a very easy way to understand. And it's interesting, I didn't realize that I think Paul works out quickly what sort of personality type you are too. I'm assuming Paul probably can sort of talk to your personality type as well, and sort of work with that. So probably a lot of what Paul was doing with me I didn't even realize, but I certainly recognized that I kind of felt like I was really well prepared from a knowledge perspective, which was very new to me, because otherwise you usually just try and teach yourself, do it yourself too, and you make trial and error. But I actually felt like I was in a life class and getting ready to do this big, ambitious goal, but confident that I wasn't going in without having more tools in the toolkit.
No, I get it. Absolutely, I get it. And I think it's also nice that you worded it for Paul, also not just being a coach, but being a mentor. I think that's really lovely, and I think that's true to itself. Paul, and what do you have to put towards that? How did you decide on what the correct nutrition was? Did you base it on what she'd previously spoke about before, what Naomi said before, what she's done, or what did you?
I think early in our discussions, I realized there was nutrition was going to be and probably was problematic in her training and racing. So we sorted that out by going to a lab, sending Naomi to a lab to get tested. So and what that test does, it works out basically for all your intensities, covering your race intensity, going a bit hard or easy, or even your sleeping, how much carbohydrates you're actually consuming and how much body fat you're actually burning. And that gave us basically a baseline to actually say, at the intensity we're expecting to actually do most of the day, how much carbohydrates you should be fueling on top of that. Gives us a really solid science baseline. However, when you look at a baseline, anything can happen. It can get cold, it can get hot, you can get a lot of stress, a lot of things can shift. So you can't just say, I'm going to have that because that's the intensity I'm doing. And building in through testing with Naomi is on sending out on a Sunday or long Saturday runs and getting her to go a little bit up, a little bit down on those and seeing what happens and building intuition. So we've got a baseline of built intuition to what happens in certain situations. A really good example of that, and it really depends on the person, is when it gets really cold. Some people burn more carbohydrates, some people burn less. Because if you get cold and you start shivering, that consumes, and it consumes carbohydrate because of the stress. Other people, they don't really suffer from the cold, so their heart rate slows down because the core temperature goes down and doesn't need to be managed, and you use less. You need to know those things. You need to play with those things to actually understand them. So that was the one thing. The other, in terms of, was all about pacing. Getting Naomi to understand what pacing feels like. Going to hard, how long can you sustain? The difference between running and trying to just stretch her in terms of different pacing. And she could build up the intuition. It's not about me telling her what to do the whole way through the race. We had this rule for first 25%. I'm gonna Naomi knows she broke the rule, but anyway, first 25% of the race is mine. That's the pace you need to go at. Then we know that pace, we know what's going to happen to your body. After that first 25%, then she can start taking control because she'll know where she is, and she'll start feeling fatigue and start taking care of itself and her intuition. But we had to control that. She went up a little bit fast in the first 25%, but it was downhill, so I'm going to give it there.
Got a bit excited
a little
there.
bit of latitude there.
Brilliant.
But those are the things, just teaching her that pacing, carbohydrates, and everything, there's no firm rules for anybody. Everybody's different, and we don't know what's going to happen in the day. It's building baseline, giving her the tools to adjust and understand what's happening, and helping her make those decisions along the way. It's educating, and it's building that feeling. When your lips start to tingle, you're probably running out of carbs, even though you feel good. It's like letting her find out her little signals around that.
Absolutely. What you're saying, I'm actually envisioning, because I was in Norway with you last year, and watching you do that and watching you process and the struggles and the mentality you had to fight through and working out what you needed. So what you're saying now, it absolutely fits in, because that's absolutely brilliant. I think I need that advice. Naomi, just going to slightly change this a little bit now. Is having a strong why essential in ultras? And what was yours going into this race? Like, what was the
Tori, I've been back and forth about this question because it is a big thing in ultras. They talk about this why, and I think what resonated for me in the end was, well, probably my mantra was get it done. So that kind of ended up being the why as well, in a way, because I just wanted to get it done. I'd had a couple of attempts and I knew I could do it, but I just probably didn't have the tools to finish it. So I don't know about the why. It's really hard to, like, you sort of think about, well, why am I doing it? 'Cause some people go, you're crazy. That's like crazy. And I also thought about what my secret goal was and what my public goal was. And when I thought about, well, what is my secret goal, it was more about finishing. Then I kind of thought, I think why was to finish it, to actually complete something that I'd started that I'd been too, I think, scared of too. Like I'd been too intimidated by it in the past. When you get into that self-doubt and you start talking yourself out of it, and oh, look, I'm at 100 Ks now and my friends and family are here. That's a good 100 K is really good. I think why was to not be intimidated by something, not let that fear stop me. So I'm not sure if that's a clear answer to the why question.
Oh, I absolutely get it. Your answer is for you. It's specific for you. That's goals worth, especially your secret goal and the public goal. Absolutely, 100%. And Paul, were you aware of the why for Naomi? Did you have any input on this at all?
Yeah, no, I didn't have. The why is personal. But as I said earlier, we had that our little value solicitation for me to understand, and that came through really strong. It was something she just needed to get done.
Yeah.
She started it. Naomi is somebody who likes to finish things she starts, and kudos to her, because 2 times not successful over 160 kilometers, most people would just walk away and say, not for me. So kudos to Naomi, and the fact that she was turning up again for a 3rd time, that was sufficient for me. That was the why. I've got to get this done. And it's funny that a lot of people talk about the why, particularly with endurance events. I've got to have a strong why. And I had one of my coach athletes this morning came to me and said, I didn't get out for that run last week. I'm really lacking motivation. And I started talking about the why. And I said, well, do you ask somebody who plays golf or plays darts what their why is? And you don't. I said, this is what you do. You do endurance sports because you like it. You don't have to have a solid why. However, if you're lacking motivation, maybe the challenge and your goal isn't big enough. She was turning up to another 70.3 in a few months' time, but she'd already done 5 or 6 70.3s. And she didn't really have a goal of a time, or it was another 7 point and not something different that scared her. So she had no fears about the race. She was just turning up and doing it. Therefore, she lost that motivation because it had become another race. Our conversation really went as, this is what you do. This is individual, obviously, as that person, somebody else would be different. But this is what you do. You go out there every day and you run. You like to cycle, you like to swim, you enjoy the sport, you like the outdoor life. And then you add these goals to actually keep it interesting. Your lack of motivation is probably because you don't have this big, hairy, audacious goal that scares you anymore. Not making it turn up. And that's the conversation. That's her. Naomi's was different. It was, I've got to get this done. So she was always going to turn up. In actual fact, with Naomi, it was kind of pulling her back. No, you're not going to get that really long run backed up with another really long run. It's not
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, Naomi, again, congratulations. Honestly, I can't even
Thanks, Tori.
begin to think. I've never done anything that extreme, so I am in awe of you being able to do that.